I think we're live. Yeah. Alrighty. So this is my first stream in a little while. I'm just getting set up to look at an animation problem in the game. I don't know what the cause of the issue is. Now, I've not worked on the animation system in a little while because it's one of those systems that you kind of get up and running and then you just build the rest of the game on top of it. But now there are just certain subtle issues. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I added this new door opening animation so that like every time you leave a dungeon, Etienne will run back a little bit. Oh, that's a slime. Go away. Right, away with you. Okay, so whenever you open a door, if you just watch the handles on the door, if you watch what happens to them, they kind of sink into the door a little. And if I slow the game down, we've got a feature here just to run things slower. It isn't just that there's like a depth buffer issue and the handles are showing through the edge of the door. It's actually a problem where the handles on the other side appear to be offset from where they should be. And you can see that when you go the other way, that they're in the correct position to start with, but they kind of slide over in a way that they shouldn't. Like that. So that's one example of what I think this issue is. Actually, the slime is a pretty good example too. I don't know if we're going to spawn another one of those guys in a different room. Let's see. There's actually a pretty good example with the, well, it's not that good. There's an issue with the goblin's foot. If you look at like his right foot, it's maybe kind of hard to see. Actually, probably, yeah, here we go. Right, so the slime himself, he doesn't move very much at all, and he has a lot of disconnected bones. So instead of it just being like a rigid hierarchy of like in his armature, it's actually something else. Oh, hey, Hoymitted? How's it going? Sorry if I butchered your username. So like the way that that skeleton fell there is also a really good example because it kind of looks like he slides just on his death animation. Rats are OP. Yeah, like that. He just kind of slides. Hey, what's your question? So if we start with the door issue, try and understand what's going on there. I feel like the music might be a little too loud. If you guys can even hear the music. Oh, the tools? Yeah, so it's actually a custom toolchain. So the game HarleQuest is gonna come out for Dreamcast. So it uses a custom C++ game engine. But for convenience in development, I run it on Windows as well, and we're hopefully going to target a Steam release. So that's the foundation is a custom game engine. We basically didn't want to spend time building a level editor if we could just use a 3D modeling package instead, and this Blender's fantastic for custom tools. Uh, our artist, Ali Lowe, is really familiar with Blender, so we thought we'd use that. But yeah, we use, it's maybe a little hard to see on that window, but I'll scooch it down a wee bit. So on the right here, sorry, on the left here, we have a tab called Ambition. So the tool set is codename Ambition Tools, and this is basically a set of Python plugins, and it lets us use Blender like a level editor. So we have this object palette with all the objects in the game, and then the idea is that if we're building up rooms or objects, we can export them and flag them here, and we just add things to the tools as we need them. So just as an example, if I go into the sewer rooms, we have all the rooms laid out here. If I go over to like the entrance, I can hit Playroom, and it'll actually just launch it in the game here. And it uses procedural generation to stitch the rooms together. So for example, in a given run, you might end up with any of these rooms, but if you wanted to just play test a particular room, you can just hit Playroom and then test what you're doing. I hope that answers your question. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been in development since 2017 on and off. So this is kind of the first year that we've properly tried to build something from it rather than it just being a prototype. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. The window splitting in Blender always confuses me a wee bit. It's not that at all, is it? I'm just trying to bring up a new bottom panel. I guess I could do it the other way. Yeah, so our custom engine does use CallistoOS behind the scenes. But there are parts of it that I rewrote just to try and get better performance or just to understand the hardware a little bit better. So like over here, this is the actual Dreamcast code. I've rewritten their like core rendering routine a whole bunch of times. So like when you're drawing the texture primitives and submitting them from the engine, it's stuff that you'll probably be familiar with, like, the PVR poly context building functions, and all the initialization code is all the CallistoOS PVR header. But then later on, we just use the store queues directly and just use the prefetch instruction to actually dispatch them rather than going through the CallistoOS functions. That helps performance a fair bit and just gives us like better control over what we're doing, like how often to populate the store queues. But yeah, so it's all built from CallistoOS. Like if you start there and you just build the game out, it's a pretty good foundation, and then you can just rewrite the bits that aren't working or the bits that you need better performance on. Have you got a project in the works just now? Hey, there we go. That's what I was trying to do. Just get the timeline open. So actually, you know what? This animation issue, it isn't the one I was thinking, because you can see this problem in Blender. You can actually see that the animation of the door handles is wrong. So this is a separate animation issue, but I will fix this one while I'm here. So you can see that like it kind of looks like a skinning issue. So when this is closed, actually you can see it around here. It goes from being correct around there to wrong around there. So if we just get a look at the properties here, I want to see these in edit mode. I'll look at their weight paint. Okay, I mean, one thing that kind of comes to mind immediately is that the door handle itself isn't weight painted at all. At least to that bone that I have selected. But then there is a detached bone here for like the kind of knocker part of the handle. I see. So because both of these are weighted to the same bone, the offset isn't carried properly when they open. So I guess probably, well, let's see. There's a couple ways we could go about it. Like, I think that they're fine when they get started. Like over this side of the door, they look fine. But as they start moving, they kind of move through. I feel like what I want to do with those is basically mirror the armature structure on the other side of the door, and then just... Oh, actually, if you look at the positioning of the armature, the skeleton, it's on one side. I feel like maybe we just need to move it. Like if I was to just, let's see, how would I do it? I guess I'd go the other way. I would move the mesh to be over the middle of the, yeah, that's what's happened. That's what's happened. The mesh has actually moved to somewhere it shouldn't be. So if I look from the top, I'm a wee bit rusty with Blender. It's been a couple weeks since I've done anything with it, really. From a modeling perspective, anyway. Okay. That's not quite right. I kind of want to just hide that so I can just see this. So if I view from top, and then just shift this over. Yeah, so if I just check the animation now, so that's the same so far. If I apply the location, maybe? No, that's still wrong. I thought what that would do is by moving the mesh. Oh, well, you can see that actually the bones are still offset a little. So maybe if I just move these bones in a little in edit mode, I still have that issue where they kind of shoot out. They kind of slide along. I'm going to just try and weight paint them a little differently. So if I close the door completely, go over to this side, and then go into weight paint. Okay, so a couple of things I notice. If I select, well, I need to be able to select, I always forget how this works, but you need to be able to select the bone here. go into pose mode, and then select the bone you want, and then go over into weight paint mode on an object. And then I think from there you can now like, I thought you could like right click to select the bone, but I can't remember what option that would be. It lets me see immediately though that actually, yeah, the right side handle is weight painted red to the pose bone on the other side. So it must be the way that these doors are made is that they were flipped, whereas you want those to be the other way. So what we want to do is paint the red here, and we want to, I guess, erase. So like darken. If you're a modeler or an animator, you'll be able to tell immediately that I don't really do this very often. Let's see. Subtract. And subtract's working. It's kind of making it colder, so we'll put the strength up. There we go. That'll do. I don't know if it's still going to be red on the other side. Let's see if that fixes it for one side anyway. Actually, no. Now I can see what it is. They're actually just on the wrong side in the first place. Okay. Okay. I get it. I get it. Undo that change so that's still painted the same way. In edit mode, we actually just need to swap these two over. So if I take all of this, and I'm just going to move it over here for now, and then we'll take this one, move it over there, okay, so now hang on. Is the music coming through now? I think I had that set to the wrong window. Yeah, that's better. Cool. Okay, so yeah, what we're looking at now is hopefully, there we go. Yeah, so they were actually just on the wrong sides. That was a bit of a wild goose chase, the first thing to look at on the stream, but there we go. It's looking better. There's a bit where it kind of like, there's some momentum and it clips in because the animation kind of swings. And it means that if you're looking at the handle on the wrong side, it's going to go the wrong way. I might just get rid of that part of the animation because otherwise we're going to have separate bones for each handle so that it doesn't go through there. It does look nice though on the outside, like to have it kind of swing open and then go over a little. I think what I'll do is, for now, we'll just remove that animation. So I have the two bones for the handles here. And if I just expand those and we look at the quaternions, so I'm actually going to change this to the graph editor. All right, so here's all the rotations. We're going to, no, not delete everything. Just the rotations, please. Well, actually, yeah, that's probably why, right? Like, I need to just delete them. I must be doing something wrong there. There we go, just press X instead of delete. Cool. That seemed a lot happier. Alright, so now, if I've deleted those, okay, now it's in just like the wrong position all the time. Whereas I guess what I actually want to do is something slightly different, because we still want them to be broadly right. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll turn off visibility for everything else. So this is just rotations we can see. And then I'm going to just delete all of the data in between here. So it's just flat. There we go. That looks better. So there's no momentum, but there's also no clipping. And I think that that's kind of a better trade-off. Okay. All right, so now I can export the armature. And we're going to export that to dungeons. I believe we've got the door armature in here somewhere. No, we don't. We actually keep the door armature in the export for the level, because that's generally where doors turn up. Hold up, just gonna see if I can remember how to show hidden things. Let me find out. Alt-H. It's reveal hidden. Oh, a separate object, that's why. Cool. Yeah, so now if I go to sewer rooms. Now, this door is in a slightly wrong position now, because of how I changed it just there. It's kind of like just a little forward. So I wonder if I was to go back to the object palette. I don't fancy going through every single one of those and updating them. So I think the best thing to do is like just adjust where the door is here. Maybe. Let's go back into sewer rooms and see how this is set up. So we have the armature as the root, or we're meant to have the armature as the root, but this seems to be unparented, which actually could be our issue. All three of these should be parented to this armature. There we go. Now, are all doors going to be set up that way currently? Yeah, apparently. I don't know about all of them, but those two definitely are. Their parent setup has been messed up somewhere. This one's correct. It's probably correct in most rooms. It might just be those first two that had that. Yeah, most of the time it's correct. So like this one's totally fine. Okay, so that means just in these cases, if I just recenter the door, is that still not parented correctly? It's still not parented right. Okay, let me try that again. Oh, this is a different room, that's why. Set parent to object. Has this gone the wrong way? No, the parent hierarchy is the right way. There we go. Got there eventually. So yeah. Then this would also be parented to that. Okay, so I've basically told both of these objects that they're parented to this armature. And then... oh. Yeah. Seems like when I do that though, it still has this kind of lip. If I go over to, so what we do in these scenes is we actually have the object palette imported. I don't know what that plane is. Don't know why we had two massive planes there. We bring the object palette in as a reference, and then we duplicate the things in the object palette out. So the plan here, first of all, is to figure out what these relationships are. So there's a little bit of a Y offset on this arch. There's no offset on the door. And then I can never select the armature. Is a box select? Box select lets you select multiple things, but just trying to select just the armature through these things is a bit of a pain. Okay, so it has like an X offset, but that's to be expected. It's got a Y offset as well, but as long as the parent hierarchy is set up properly, that should all be fine. So yeah, parent hierarchy is set up properly in the object palette. That bit's fine. I believe this is sewer door 2. It's just door 2 here, yeah. Okay, so if I save it and go over to the sewer rooms, here it's called sewer door 2. Oh, that's its actual mesh. Yeah, so it's door 2 and its object name. That's fine. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to append. So that I just deleted the door so that I could add it in again. Just in case the positions being changed isn't updating. So if I append the object palette, and we're going to bring in objects, and we're going to bring in doors, door 2 armature, door 2 frame. Just re-import that from the palette. Yep, 0 on the door. There's a little bit of a Y offset, as we know. Now, if I get rid of this Y offset, append was the wrong thing. It should have been linked, because I can change this and I shouldn't be able to. So yeah, what I should do is delete that and then link instead. Okay, so if I then take the doors, cool. So this is all as one would expect. So we go back into our levels. Now, there's now this kind of issue where doors are sometimes offset and they're sometimes not. These are duplicate objects, but that's fine, but as long as they're not duplicate, yeah. That's fine. Yeah, so each of these arches need to be updated. It's probably just that we don't have that little bit of Y offset here, like that -1,4. So what I could do here actually, the annoying thing is we'd have to like break half the rooms anyway, just because the way they've been set up, which is a bit annoying. I could probably fix it up with a script. I'm actually just going to focus on the door in this one room to get it correct and just know that our pipeline for it is okay. But when we have these at 0, 0, it should definitely be centered properly. So what I'm going to do is open up the object palette, and then if this object here has its transform where it has this like -0.13, if I was to zero that out, that's the issue that we're seeing. So what we can do instead is if we apply location, it's now offset 0, and that just means that the mesh data has actually been changed. And then if I open the sewer rooms again, that one we're looking at is fixed because it's a linked instance. But it'll now be broken in certain other rooms that were compensating for that already, like this. So this one obviously had a bit of compensation in there. So the parent hierarchy is set up correctly there by the looks of it, because if I select the armature, it does move everything. God, selecting the armature is always such a challenge. There must be a better way to select armatures than what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, so I know that that bit's right. There we are. So the door just has a Y offset. There we are. That's fine. So just as I go through the game, I'm going to have to be careful to make sure that the doors don't have this issue. A lot of them seem to just now. So if I apply the parent inverse, that actually just changed its rotation. Because it has a 90-degree rotation relative to its parent, which it shouldn't have. Okay. Alright, well that's something that's going to be a bit annoying, because I'm now going to have to update this hierarchy for each room. I can possibly script it, just so I don't have to do it for everything. So I'll come back to that later, that's not what we're working on today. Oh, I need to re-export the mesh. That looks way better. There's still a slight lip here, and that's because the relative object positions are actually stored in the room scene. So now... No, that's gone back that way. Oh, because I need to re-export this mesh as well, because that actually changed the mesh data. There we go. That's it. Sweet. Okay, so I know what that problem was, at least. Our support for hierarchies and something a bit like you'd get prefabs in Unity, or what do they call them in Unreal again? Blueprints? Yeah. We don't have something that's a good abstraction of that just now. In Blender, you've got linked instances, but you only have individual objects that are linked, and then their relative transforms are still per room. You can change them and override them. What I'd really like to have is a proper prefab system, and at some point we will need to build that. But what we have just now generally does the job. But I will need to come up with something to make it a bit more manageable. Okay, so that's one issue down. Gonna get that checked in. Picks up door animation and relative transform. Okay. Okay, so now, time to actually try and get into the animation issues I was concerned about before. I think using the slime is probably a good example. So in Blender, he's still kind of a work in progress character. Ali was working on him a few weeks back. He has, the slime, not Ali. The slime has a whole bunch of detached bones. You can see here that the hierarchy, the way that it's set up, is that if you select one of these bones, you can see that the connected checkbox is unchecked, and that means that you can move in pose mode, you can move these bones arbitrarily. They're not constrained by each other. There is still a parent hierarchy for translation and rotation, but one way you can think about it is that there's like an extra bone in between these two, but Blender just kind of infers what that bone would be based on what you're doing. That's not entirely how it's working, but that's like, it's a reasonable, intuitive way to think about it. Yeah, so what I want to do here, so let's turn the music down a wee bit. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so what I'd like to do is render this guy in game in a way that we can see him clearly. And what we did used to have was a gallery screen where you could see up close what's going on with characters and animations. And I've not used the gallery screen in quite a while, but I'd like to bring it back. It'll need a bit of fix up. Here we are, show gallery, that's the one. So before I could just set that to 1 and then it would show a gallery instead of the game. I haven't done this in a while, so we'll see if this still builds. Alright, so room data. It wants to populate the gallery screen with room data. That's undefined. So we obviously used to have room data here and we don't now. Probably because I moved the room data somewhere. We could just build a default room data. Pass in a default one. Okay, so the gallery is still technically working, in that you can see that Etienne's loaded and that he's animating, but it's also rotating, and it's rendering him on a plane that's rotating. I'm not going to claim to know why that is. Okay, let's find out why. It's maybe something that I was debugging and just forgot to remove at some point. Could be related to the camera stuff, that's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, we do a bunch of stuff with the camera in the game screen, regardless of whether we're in the gallery view or not. Let's see, that was draw game. Okay, so based on the animation time, oh I see, so previously we would actually rotate each model individually, but it seems like we're doing something else now. When we set view projection on the mesh to the model, let's see. So obviously if I, well I say obviously, if I don't animate these, maybe it'll just be just sitting on screen. Yeah, okay. So it's not rotating, but it's still kind of off screen, which implies that the projection's wrong. Oh, I see. This was from before we had support for setting the matrix in the render data. That's a fairly new thing. When I was doing mesh draw, this is going to set our view projection in our render data. Somewhere. Here. So when we're drawing texture primitives, we pass in render options. And one of the things in those options is the model view projection matrix, which we copy over in the mesh entity. So we're setting the view projection, which is going to set that MVP, or just set the VP here. But we're currently passing in like a model matrix there, which I don't know about that. I think this translation's probably the thing causing the issue as well then. Like we shouldn't really be doing that. This was probably necessary before, but it's not now. So we pass VP in there. And I've commented out any translation stuff there. So this should just show 3 Etiennes on the screen at different animations. I mean, it does, but it's only showing one of him and he's quite zoomed in. It seems like the camera is still a little odd here. I'm not sure exactly why that is. We update the projection matrix to be the same as if we were rendering in game. Oh, we set the camera's focal point here. So it's up to the camera to decide what its default zoom level is, and I think I probably just changed the default zoom level for the game, but I didn't update it for the gallery. Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is, we just pass in that there. So all I need to do is set the, well, when we call set focal point, it also figures out, using the point of interest system, it figures out where to zoom in. So that's probably why it's zooming in so much, is that its point of interest system hasn't had the right data fed into it. Oh, hey, I'm probably not going to see your name properly. Milsi Badawi. Oh no, you're just a spammer. That's a shame. first ever spammer I've had on my my Twitch channel. I'm just trying to find out how to delete this message. I've never had to do that before. Good practice. So first I need to, what, enable mod icons? Okay. Oh, I see. Cool. So I can ban you? There we go. Cool. Alright, yeah. So point of interest system for the camera is something that I need to set. Highest point of interest distance from player. And, well, that's just a calculation based on the focal point. And the second parameter to set focal point is this point of interest. So what point of interest am I passing in? Well, 0. So if I was to just set that to 10, for example, it kind of gives us a radius of 10 from the player to the nearest point of interest. There we go, okay. There's a couple things a little weird about this. The aspect ratio seems off. I still can't see the other two ETNs, although that's possibly because they're actually all getting rendered in the same place now. Yeah, let's try this translation again, but without the view projection being defined. What would it be? Was it defined twice? Oh, that's not going to make any difference because that model matrix isn't actually used. Yeah, so I also kind of want to just make this focal point be lower and the camera's own position higher. We have an elevation parameter too. Maybe just set that, although I don't think elevation's even used anymore. That was probably from before the point of interest system. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do just now is just make it so that the camera is kind of looking down from above a little bit. I think what we're currently doing is showing it straight on. So I changed the point of interest Y position to be 0. Or the focal point Y position to be 0. Yeah, so that's like 0, 0, 0 in the center. So when we calculate the lookat matrix for the camera, we add the position to the focal point. We calculate the position using a combination of the rotation amount around the y-axis. Yeah, which is our pitch. And we just rotate whatever the position is, which is our zoom level. So what I need to set is rotate amount. This is something we already have. Now rotate amount, hold up, no, for rotating around the y-axis, this is like our left and right camera rotation. This is for like spinning the room. That isn't what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do here is just put this position above the player, which I think we can just do. I think I can just set that in the gallery screen, and that should be fine. It's just a parameter, so I can just set it. And if we just set it on like 3 on the y-axis. Okay, didn't like that at all. Set this back to 0. Here we are. I'm already doing this, and I'm doing it every frame. That's what's going on here. Yeah, I'm actually doing something. Oh, no, it's populate. It isn't every frame. It's just on initialization, right? But we do pass the position in, so I want this position to be higher up. There we go, kind of. So, a couple issues. There's still only one of them on the gallery screen. There's meant to be 3 from different angles. And also, that's just a little too high up now. And also, I'd kind of like it if there wasn't a little animation that like pulls out, which I mean in the game makes perfect sense for the focal point system. But for this test, we don't really need that. We just want the target zoom level to be equal to the zoom level. When we call set focal point, it's going to set the target zoom level, so I'm just going to say like set the focal point and then current zoom levels equal to target zoom level. Okay, that's all right. Now, I still think the aspect ratio looks out. It just looks really kind of long somehow, really tall and skinny. So the way that would get calculated is an update projection, because we've got the width and the height from the screen target. The screen target itself is going to come in from this parameter. So whenever we call gallery screen draw, we're going to pass in the width and the height and any other screen information. So in game screen draw, yeah, we just passed the target through. So, I mean, the target's definitely correct because that's what we use for the game itself. What I can do just to check it out is put a breakpoint in, just make sure that the width and height of the window are correct. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but worth checking. 640 by 480, that's correct. So camera's update projection call. We've got our near and far clipping planes defined. We've got our width and height. We calculate our aspect ratio, and then we just have 95-degree field of view. Well, not 95-degree, sorry. It's 0.95, but that will be in, it's a field of view probably in radians. Yeah, because we'd take half the tan. Or sorry, inverse tangent of half the FOV, so that's already in radians. So quite a narrow field of view. Yeah, so I mean this is consistent with what we're doing for the game. It's not really something that would affect it. Honestly, for the animation issue, it's not super important. It's more important that we just have the ability to view basically like a model viewer that's just up close and we don't have to play the game to see it. Yeah, so I mean, it does look a little janky, but it's good enough. So yeah, let's try and get the translation in, so that the left and right translations are correct. So if we pass in transform here, and we're just going to use transform for these as well, but I'm not going to do the multiplication that way. Or I'm not going to do the rotation, sorry. Just the translation. Okay, so wait a minute. This still looks like it's the reason that the perspective looks off. It's like it's rendering it to a quad and then we're rotating the quad, kind of. Like when the camera does its rotation, just from the way that looks, it looks like it's rotating something flat. Like, one way we could test that is if I change the camera position to just make it really high up. It'll still be looking down towards the origin. Yeah, that definitely looks flat to me. Also, scaling things in an unusual way. This gallery screen was made so long ago that there were so many changes to the system since here. But it's, yeah, that's so flat looking, so it's definitely like rotating it, almost like rotating the screen instead of rotating the camera, which that implies that that implies that this is done the wrong way. It should be, yeah, it's an order of operations issue. Okay, and then bring this right down. Does this just pass straight through this VP here? Yes. The mesh entity passes the view projection matrix that we specify in as MVP. It's not actually just a view projection, it is an MVP, it's just misnamed. So when we draw texture primitives, it's going to take that, and all the vertices are going to get transformed by it. But you can see by this like left clipping here that it's still like transforming the actual screen. Actually, I do remember making a change where we specify view and projection separately, but did I keep that? No, we just pass in MVP all in one go. That's fine. Ah, that was it. The camera calculates the view and the projection separately. We needed that for something. Because we made the member variables that update when you process. It's probably so we didn't have to recalculate the projection matrix every time we changed the view matrix. That was probably it. But we do call update projection every frame here. Right, so even without this translation, we still get this issue. Even if I strip all this away, just going back to minimal worked example. This transform matrix, if I just set it to VP, which is the view projection from the camera, we're not doing any model transforms at all, it's just the view projection from the camera. Let's see what we see. That's correct. That looks right to me. So if I look down from the top, like if we, or we'll look down from the, look on from the front first. No, okay. It's definitely wrong then. You can see from the front, I think it just happens to look okay from the top because that is that's close to the angle it ends up at. The Windows implementation of draw texture primitives is not going to do any transformation on the CPU side. It just uses OpenGL calls. It's not that efficient, but it's way fast enough for this type of game. And currently it is just for debugging to run on Windows. But anyway, we are submitting the matrix here. And it works fine in the game, but not on the gallery screen. And what we grab is options.mvp.m. So MVP is a matrix. The .m is because a matrix has a .m member, I think. Can't actually remember that. Where's the .m? Oh, it's a union. Yeah, so it's a union with a struct for all the floats, and then M for the 60. Again, that works totally fine in the game. So, I mean, maybe what I should do is if I look at the, let's say the player, and we look at how we draw the player currently. So we've got a model matrix, and at the very end, after doing everything we want, we multiply in the VP. Okay, so that's going to be the same. This model matrix will just get set on the mesh. Yeah. Fine, we know that works. What might be different is if the gallery screen is doing something to the camera. Oh, what if the gallery screen is doing something and the game screen, which contains the gallery screen, is also doing something to the camera? So we call zone set view projection. Nope, that's just for the game. That's from draw game specifically. So we just need functions that we're actually using. So what I'll maybe do is check that we're using, well, we will be using this process. Gallery screen dot draw. So these are the only things we're doing. So anything that's camera related that should be happening in draw game is what we need to check. Well, in the zone we set the view projection with the view and the projection separately. That's fine because we don't use zones for our gallery. So we set view projection zone and we call zone draw. So zone draw is what's actually going to be doing this correctly. And the way that works is through drawing the room. And we just call set view projection on the player to make sure it has the right one. This is the view projection that would be from the camera. We call player draw. And we've been here before, so yeah, it just does rotate, translate, and then VP, and sets that. So if we go back to the gallery screen and I look at how this is all set up, we're calling update projection in the gallery screen. When would I call that otherwise? The game screen would call it normally. And it would call it when we're in game, before calling set focal point. It's called update projection, then set focal point. And I'm not sure if the order matters there. I'll have to find that out. Because we do the same thing. We do update projection, set focal point. So that bit's fine. And we hardcode the zoom level. I mean, we do it in process instead of draw. I suppose that could be relevant. I wouldn't expect so, but possible. Well, actually, no, we don't. We couldn't because the target's there. Maybe the game screen has the target as a member? Yeah, I think it does. I think we initialize it with the screen target. Yeah, okay, that's different. I honestly don't think this would make a difference being in process though. Just trying to think of anything else that could cause this. I guess I could look at Insight graphics. Use the frame debugger. So we can just see that it renders him 3 times. Yeah, we're doing the render to texture. And the render to texture has the wrong transform as well. It really is like it's using... Because this is the screen. So it's like it's mapping... It's using the same matrix for the initial draw and then again for mapping the screen, but it definitely doesn't do that for the game itself. Just for the gallery screen. Okay. Which makes it sound like the matrix in the options is somehow left over. So we can work backwards from platform windows, where we do the rendering. So draw texture primitives is going to do that call. We have draw line. Those are the only 2 calls. So where do we do our render to the screen? So we have a render target here. We've got our frame buffer texture. So when we begin frame, we bind the frame buffer, we clear. Where do we actually populate the FBO vertices? Let's see where we bind it. Where we specify those verts. Here we go, on end frame. Render off-screen frame buffer texture to actual window buffer, which, yeah, this is what we do. Right, but we've not changed the matrix. This doesn't seem to change the matrix, so if it's using the same shader, which I believe it will be, oh, maybe with the game there's just a coincidence in that the last matrix that we pushed happened to be an identity matrix. And it just uses that same one. Whatever your last matrix was, it uses it for the frame buffer. Okay, well that's very interesting. So we're going to do draw texture primitives. We're going to specify the uniform matrix. Basically going to do the same thing as that. This needs to be an identity matrix. And then the color tint. It wants a Vic4. And the shader, we'll need that to be specifically wants this color tint, which I think is maybe not. What type is this? It's just RGBA. Okay, so we'll just create one of these. Make them const. So complete coincidence that we got away with this. So good to get that fixed. There we go. That looks way better. Aspect ratio is correct. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to look. Nice one. That was a subtle issue. Okay. Next up then. Let's see if we add a bit of elevation. Yeah, and that's how he normally looks in game. Okay, cool. So, what now? We want to make it one of the characters. Well, I suppose I could show all three of them again, now that we've fixed that problem. So we'll just bring in the transforms we were doing last time. So we have our VP and our translation. So no longer is this like that, it's more like that. So we're going to do load translation. We need to set, so get rid of that mult VP there, and we just set the transform to be VP here. Okay, the rotation is still wrong. This is definitely an order of operations thing. So we have the transform set to the VP, and then we multiply out the other things. So we probably want to do the opposite. We want to say transform's an empty matrix. So we do transform translation. We do load the, well, first of all do the rotation, because it's backwards. Then we do the translation. Then we do the view projection at the end, because the vertex is going to go through the pipeline from rotation first, then translation, then view projection. I kind of feel like actually the rotation should happen afterwards in my head, because no, we do want to rotate the vertices first and then translate, because otherwise it would offset them from the rotation. There we go. This is the screen we wanted to have. Cool. So we have a front view in the middle. He's facing left on the left, and then we have one rotating around on the right. And this gives us a pretty good idea of what the animation looks like. Now, the elevation's still a little high, so I'm going to bring the elevation down a bit. All right. That is perfect. This is exactly what we need to see. Okay, now, not for Etienne though. We want a different character. And this gallery lets us go through the enemies, but we haven't updated it in a while. So if I press the F key, it should move to the next animation. There we go, that's him running, attacking, karate chop. And then that's him rolling. Okay, and then we have Goblin. Now, immediately we can see a couple things, like, I don't know how many of these things are issues in the actual animation files, but like, there's some spiky bits on the Goblin. He maybe looks like he's carrying his weight a bit differently from his animation file. Some of these haven't been updated in a while. Right, the knight's legs, they are very broken. I feel like if we could fix the knight's legs, then that would be like a great thing to win for this stream. If we could fix those legs, then the animation system's going to be working better. So let's do that. So I'm actually going to comment out everything that isn't the knight for now. Just want the knight on there just now. Okay, so I can see that there's quite a few things wrong. On his left foot in particular, his right foot seems broadly correct. There's a little bit of unusual movement. That might actually just be from the pose, from his idle animation. But on the left foot, there's all kinds of twisting going on. So there's also what appears to be a little bit of Z fighting on his boot. I think it's Z fighting. So we'll see what's going on there. So if I open that in Blender, we were going to look at the slime, but I'm just going to start with the knight. I feel like that's a better starting point. Here he is. So if we just let him play, and we're going to change to his idle. That isn't the same. I'm not sure if we're actually using that idle. It looks quite different. Let's re-export this, just to be sure. So first of all, I'm going to re-export his armature. Knight skeleton. There we go. Okay, and then we'll export his current animation as his idle. Okay, I'm just going to check. Yeah, that all got exported properly from Blender. So now if we run gallery again. Okay, it's definitely the correct animation, but his legs are definitely wrong. Now, I don't think I'll need to change the code here at all. I think I could probably even get away with hitting the play room button. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Alright, so first of all, do a little side by side. I don't know if you'll be able to see this clearly on the stream. Probably not. Nah, but yeah, I can see quite clearly that it's kind of from the knee down that it looks wrong. Everything else looks pretty much right. Okay, so let's get a look at his data. So we can grab the active object, which is going to be our armature. So I'm just going to do bpy.context.activeObject, and that's our armature object. And then I'm going to need to check my exporter for the actual names of things here. So we go through the bones, that's how our exporter works. Go through all the object.data.bones. So B can be the bones. There we are. Supposed to do 4B in bones. Well, no, before bone and B, right? Maybe I should have just called it bones. Bones equal B. Yeah, that's better. So before B in bones, print B, and that prints out all the bones. Okay, so we need to figure out which bones are actually the problem. So we're doing this from the root. So the root is, the actual root is this bone. And that is just called bone. It's the first one there. And then the first child one, which is not attached, is called body. And then we have the upper left leg, upper right leg. I think I said them the wrong way around, but you get the idea. And these are all attached. These are all connected. And they all have inherit rotation, scale, location set. Now, these two are not connected because they're detached from the body, from this halfway point. Which means from a pose point of view, you can just move them around wherever you want them. And it seems like the problem here is not so much the legs themselves as the next bone in the chain. So it could be like if you have a detached bone, what's the pattern here? Is it if you have a detached bone that the next thing, it could be wrong. So the other point is, are we dealing with a skinning problem or is it a bone transformation problem? That's the next part of it. So we don't currently render bones in the game. We probably could. It would help us with debugging. Because we know that there's the one on the floor, there's the one in the body, and the one in the body's not connected, and then it has the two legs which also each aren't connected. So we've got a double disconnected chain. I suppose what I could try is what happens if I connect them. So like, what if I was to say that this was connected? It's probably going to mess up the animation, but I want to see if it's consistent. Like if this is going to look ridiculous, but if I connect these, it messes them up. But if I was to then, I don't know, just rotate. I wonder if I was even just to clear out all keyframes and just do... Oh, this is fun. It's rotating from the origin. We want it to be from the active element. There we go. So if I just pose and then just export a static pose. This is ridiculous, but it will help us understand. Like, can I get the game to do this pose? Only data that's changed there, those two parts actually. There's the skeleton itself, and then the animation data. Okay, so this is very interesting. It's almost like it's something to do with the mirroring. Because the leg on, I mean, it almost looks right. Almost looks the same, not quite. Oh, yeah. You can kind of tell from there's this kind of ridge at the front. The left leg looks nearly correct, but the right leg looks totally wrong. It looks fine in Blender, and it looks wrong in the game. So, it's almost like it's something to do with the mirroring. So I think there's a mirror modifier on object. Hold up. Why do we have two armatures bound? And it seems like one's invalid, so it probably doesn't matter. It must just be the way it was made. If I delete this armature, just got this armature. It's called armature 005. Like that's its object name. But he's bound to armature 001. It's a different armature? No, it's probably just the actual data armature. Well, that's 004. Okay, this is interesting. We have other armatures to find. And he obviously exports properly, so it's not that big a deal, but... Oh, the object it's actually bound to. This is the name of the modifier, which is armature. The object it's bound to is armature 5. That's this object, so that's fine. Right, so with that in mind, I'm going to re-export as mesh. I'm going to re-export his skeleton. And then, just for good measure, I'll re-export the animation as well. Let's do the 3. Okay, so it wasn't anything to do with the invalid secondary modifier. That's still a problem. So what I do know is that there's no mirror modifier currently applied here. There's no mirroring going on. These are all separate objects. So something else. Well, I guess what we could do next is, if we look at the weight painting, something I added for the ambition tools here is that we can see what weights vertices are actually influenced by, like which bones they're influenced by. And if we look in the test here, we can see that this like hip bone is way out to the side, that's on his left side. if we look at that, the only thing it's bound to is like that one's bound to body, fully bound to body. This one's bound to leg, upper L, as it should be. But like, there's only one or two bones that these are bound to. So if I change this to weight paint, we'll need to do the thing where we select armature, put it in pose mode, and then now that we're in pose mode, I select the bone I care about. Now we select the object and go into weight paint. There we are. So we can see that like the hip is influenced by that bone, and that hip's influenced by that bone. And it kind of is as you would expect there. So the assignments look totally fine. Okay. Trying to think of things to test. What would be the right approach to test this? I mean, I could go with a simpler mesh and just build it up. That's probably the best way to do it. Build it up from nothing. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll make a test. So I know that I have made tests before. The way I'm going to do this one is going to be a bit hacky, just because it's convenient. I am going to completely override the knight. I'm going to edit the skeleton to have one bone, and I'm going to edit the mesh, turn it into a cube, and then we're just going to currently make the cube like exactly equal to, well, maybe not exactly, but let's see. Close enough. I guess if I made the length of the bone in edit mode to be like exactly given value, given length. This bone. Well, it's exactly 1 unit. So if I select these, oh, I see. Yeah, their Y is -1. Isn't, no, it's Z that we're talking about, which is like 3.3. Oh, is this because it's scaled maybe? Like if I set the Z to 1. Yeah, that's probably because I scaled it up a bunch. So I need to apply the scale first. Yeah, and then Z1. There we go, that's it. So now, yeah, I'm just going to make this cube be the knight. We're going to make that bone be the skeleton, the armature. And then I'm going to define a keyframe in pose mode. 10 keyframes, just all of them that you need. And then just export that. So I'll need to give them a texture. We want something that helps us see it move properly. Could try the grey box one. Nah, that's probably going to be kind of hard to see actually. I don't have a UV test grid. I know I could export one from Blender, but kind of lazy. I just want to find something that's close. Maybe we just use the same night texture actually. If it's got enough noise on it. Let's see how it looks. Maybe. Could try it. Okay. Let's try that. So this is the mesh. This is the skeleton. This is the animation. Oh. Posebone's body could not be resolved. Well, that's probably because some of these still have their old weight painting set up. No, because it's a brand new object. Oh, it'll be because it's still using the idle animation, right? So I actually need to give it its own animation. Like a different one. Because it still has all these bones defined here, but they don't actually exist. There we go. So if we just export the animation again, that's fine. Okay. If I play room, do we just get this cuboid? We do. Okay. A good starting point. So next what we're going to try is splitting this into 2 cubes, and we're going to try and incorporate a little translation, a little rotation, and a little scale. So the way I'm going to do that is, to begin with, I'm actually going to not use separate like vertex painted like elbows, if you know what I mean, like hinges. We're just going to have like a separate set of vertices, like up here. And we'll do the same for the skeleton. I'm just going to take an edit mode. I'm going to extrude C, and that way it'll pull up another bone. I can do loop cuts on bones. No. But I know that if I select this one and then say you're not connected, and then we just lift it up. There we go. So from here, we just need to make sure that the weight painting's set up properly. So let's go back into textured. This in pose mode, and this will go into weight paint. And I actually haven't even set this up as the armature for this object in Blender. It works in the game. Well, I say it works in the game. We've not animated it yet, so we don't know if it works. So I'll just add the armature, and it will point to that one. Okay, so now weight paint. So this bottom object is entirely going to be painted to, it's going to be entirely painted to the bottom cuboid. There we go. Now this has done some like automatic painting, I think, or something. But if I just paint over it, it's fine. There we are. Cool. So then next up, we are going to export this mesh. And the skeleton. Animation hasn't changed yet, so I mean there's no way for us to know currently if it works. So we're just going to go into pose mode and practice like just make an animation. So what I want to do here is just for this bone, I'm going to insert our keyframes. We're going to move it on Y by -1. Oh no, that was silly. So we want it to be there, so like halfway through the animation. So grab Y -1, insert there, and then back to the end, and we're going to move it to the origin again. So we're just going to grab the initial keyframes and duplicate them. It just goes out and back in. Okay, and that's on in Blender, that's on the y-axis. In HarleQuest, that would be the x-axis, I do believe. Although it's possible that this is going to happen to the side in game and I need to rotate it. Yeah, actually from HarleQuest's point of view, it will be looking on this way, I think. So it will go forward and then back, and there's like a little, it's just like a little nudge here, which implies the vertex painting needs to change. Not the vertex painting, the weight painting. This needs to be not influenced by that at all. So, I mean, subtract, I guess. There we go. Cool. I'm going to re-export. Okay, so we're zoomed too far in to see exactly what's happening. So I do want to zoom out a little. Okay, so we can see that this is working as I anticipated, so it's moving towards the player by unit, forward in its own space, because it's moving on what would become the Z-axis in HarleQuest. It's the Y-axis in Blender. And we can see that the movement is consistent so far. So yes, it's disconnected, it's not a connected bone, it looks fine. Okay, so that's the first step. The next step would be what happens if it involves rotation, because currently there's no rotation. And what I'd like to see is if I make this smaller, I'm going to make something where like, I need to change my grid stuff. Right. So that's quite a lot smaller. So to begin with, that's fine, but I do want to make this bone a lot smaller as well. So now this will just move out that way. But then what I want is for it to, I want it to have something above it that rotates. So the way we're going to do that is export on Z, not export, sorry, extrude on Z, up a bunch. And again, I'd like to disconnect this. So we've got two levels of disconnection. Okay. Okay, so yeah, we want to weight paint the new data onto this new bone. Ha! Yeah, because we don't have selection, or in any case, my selection didn't pull all of my data. Here, not getting back faces when we select. Why is that? There we are. Okay, so now weight paint. So we want to make sure that it's kind of figured out what we want to do anyway, but just to be safe. And it shouldn't have any influence there, so that's wrong. Oh wait. Is this actually painting? Should be subtracting influence, but something's up. Not sure what was happening there. That's odd. Yeah. Oh, okay. What was that? If I add influence here, it should only affect this bit. Not sure what was happening there. Actually, no, something's gone wrong here because that middle section's just disappeared. Where did it go? Maybe I moved it instead of duplicating it. I actually can't remember. Right, let's do it again. So, pose mode. We'll select the first one. Now, this is correct. We don't want any influence on the top two on that root bone. Then we take the middle one. We can see that there's influence on the top when there shouldn't be. So we should be able to just fully remove that influence. There we are. And then again, fully remove any influence on the bottom. We pick the top one, we want to remove any influence underneath, really any influence at all. And then change to add, and we just want this top part. There we are. Completely separate. So now we want to export the mesh, the skeleton, the animation. Animation hasn't changed actually. Okay, so far that is what I told it to do. Now we need to look at this rotation side of things. So we want to have the middle bone rotate, and ideally it would rotate in an unusual way that tells us if it's working properly. So what I'm going to do is insert a keyframe here where this middle bone is going to be rotated around the y-axis, -45, like that. So from the player's point of view, it's going to come towards them, and it's going to rotate out the way, like that. Like that way. Okay, and then as that's happening, we're going to have this bone above it rotate on y positive 45. So we're sticking to, now this didn't have any keyframes before. So if we like rotate y negative 45 again, isn't quite where it needs to be. What's going on there? Oh, I could just Alt R. There we are. Keyframe. That's it. So, yeah, so I look just top down. Now, interestingly, it looks as though there is actually a little lateral movement there. Like there's a little bit of movement on the x-axis, and I feel like there shouldn't be. Is that just a trick of, it's not a trick of perspective, because you can see that the origin is actually translating along x. Why is that? We ignore all the other keyframes and just look at x, y, and z. They're flat lines. They don't move. But something about this rotation is probably because the bones are all defined in terms of local offsets. So by rotating that sideways, its location, yeah, that'll be it. Its location is going to be affected. Makes sense. Cool. It's quite a complex little movement that will help us out. Okay, let's try it. Now, I know I didn't tell it to go back. It stays up and snaps down. So if there's no data, it should end there. I'm going to just scale the animation time to make it a little slower so we can see it a bit more clearly. Put it at half speed. Okay, so far this looks right to me. But I'd like to make it continuous just so that we can see for sure. So the way to do that is this last frame. We just clear rotation here, new keyframes, and then export the animation again. There we go. So that's what it's meant to do. So One thing I did notice while working on this is that inheriting rotation, scale, and location, they're all things that you can specify independently, but our exporter definitely doesn't check those, it just assumes them. Now I wonder if I was to open the knight and just look at his data. This is the knight, of course. Okay, what I'm going to do is stash his blend file. Actually, better yet, I'm going to copy his blend file. Debug animation bones.blend, and then we're just going to discard any changes to the knight, and then in Blender I can just open that again. Okay, now if I look at the way these bones are set up now, okay, so they're inherit rotation, scale, and location. I have a local location specifically. That is the same on both sides. Okay, so that all looks fine. In my exporter for the skeleton, I want to see, I don't handle connected bones in any particular way. There's no special logic there. But we do check to see if it has a parent, and I guess that's going to be the main difference. That, well, no, it has a parent, and whether it's connected are different things. It would still potentially have a parent. I mean, potentially disconnected bones do need to be treated separately. Or differently, I suppose, is another way to put it. Oh, hey, Dreamcast Freak. How's it going? Sorry, I wasn't watching the chat there. I don't know if it's the first indie game to feature bones. I believe Driving Strikers uses them for something, or at least Simulant has support for them. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure. Xenocider has animations, but I don't know if they're just vertex animations or if they use bones as well. It's definitely the first game that I've made a full animation system for, including the exporter. So yeah, so what I'm trying to do here is just debug issues to do with bones being connected. I'm not sure what's causing like the subtle issues that we've been seeing, and some not so subtle. This is something temporary that I've been putting together just to try and understand how everything can play together. So for example, you can have bones that are connected, bones that are not connected, and then every bone can define a translation, a rotation, and a scale, which other bones will inherit. And as an animation's playing, you can change any of that. And Blender lets you specify so much data for bones. Like if I select any one of these, we can see it has a head location, a tail location, there's a roll value for how it's rotated. Over here, we can say whether it's connected and how it inherits things. And HarleQuest only really needs a subset of that. It doesn't need everything that Blender can do. And since working on the original prototype, I keep coming back to try and debug aspects of the system. So where we're at with it now is this night, if I just export his data, I can show you how that looks. So export as mesh, export as skeleton. I really want to make this export process faster as well, but I don't want to get distracted from actually fixing the issue. And we'll export his animation as well. And then in Engine, he looks like this. That's actually the wrong animation, but you get the idea. You can see that one of his legs is way off. So if I change his animation to the idle, that's actually the one we're debugging right now. I'll need to re-export that. You know, I didn't have to re-export that. Or maybe I did re-export it. Anyway. So, yeah, this is how he looks. You can see that the feet are kind of mangled. They don't look right at all. He generally looks right on the top half, but there's something very wrong about the legs. So I've been trying to put together like a debug object to see which part of the system isn't working right. I suppose one thing that this example has is that it's got two bones that share a parent, but they're both disconnected. That could potentially be the thing. Like one disconnected bone looks fine, but two disconnected bones don't. That's a possibility. So to test that, if we go back over to, well, I've not opened it yet. If we go back over to the debug animation bones, and I'm just using the night mesh just now. Okay, so this is our test again. What I'm going to try now is if I make something in like a Y shape. So we'll start with a mesh. If I give it like an offset like that, and then we just duplicate those over. And then we're going to edit the bones to that way. I'm actually just going to duplicate those and have two that way. And then we're going to update the weight paints. So that, for example, if we subtract all of this, let's put the strength up again. Just make sure that that's there. Yep. Okay, and then just want each thing to be weighted to its own thing. Kind of messed it up a little bit there, but we'll come back to it. here. So then, let's see, so this one's done, still got a little one here. This one's still got a little one here. This one's on there, that's fine. This one's on there, but not enough. There we go. Looks good. So now we just re-export the mesh. Then the skeleton, the animations. Okay, now there's a lot going on here, but it does look correct. I'm actually going to just have the rotating one because it's getting a bit busy. So down here, where we would render different versions of this, I'm actually just going to always just render one, and we're always just going to do this one. Okay, that looks good, but I also don't want to translate it that way. Still getting translated. Ah, that was rotation. Just commented out the wrong thing. There we go. Those are some clean textures. Yeah, some of the textures are really nice. Alistair Low Tech Games, he did most of the art so far. He's done a really good job. He's a busy guy, so hoping to get some more of his time soon to make some more art for the game. Right, so I'm going to make the camera a little higher up now, just to see everything that we're doing. Alright, so this is a pretty good perspective of it. Kind of feel like the focal point could be a bit higher as well though. Maybe we want this to be at 1.5. And then like the zoom level could be a little lower. Yeah, that's a pretty good view. Kind of like that. Kind of maybe feel like this should be at 3 though. It's weird that we're getting that animation because I do set the zoom level to whatever the target should be. But maybe it's not just the zoom level, maybe this is new focal points. It's probably going to just interpolate towards that. Yeah. Okay, so our actual focal point versus our target is going to be different. So in the same way, I don't want that fade. I just want it to be locked just now. So our focal point is just going to be equal to the target focal point. Oh, new focal point. The inconsistent naming there, but that's fine. Okay, so yeah, this looks correct so far. So we're going to throw in some new data. This time, the one on the right over here, I want to add some animation data for that. So as this first one does its double rotation that way, I'd like this one to do a... Let's try rotation around X instead. There's a rotation around X. Yeah. And then insert keyframe. Actually, I should have inserted the other keyframes too, so I'll just do that now. And then up to the end. So the same way, this should go forward and then backward. There we go. That's it. Forward and backward. So I feel like we need to have a little bit of translation, like relative translation going on. So as this, yeah, let's do it this way. Both of these are going to translate. And this first one, as it gets to the extent, it's going to translate up, but like local to itself. So it's going to translate up to like here. I just want to make sure the directions are correct. That's the main goal here. Goes up like that and down like that. So a similar way, I want both of these to kind of extend out for the middle. So the animation's going to look like this. Oh wait, that top one should really have start and end keyframes. Okay. It looks kind of freaky. Should do the job. Okay. As far as I can tell, that's correct so far. What have I not tried? Not done any scaling yet. Oh, I've not done rotation on more than one axis. That's worth testing. Yeah, let's do rotation on more than one axis. So what I'm going to do then to test that is this new one that's on the right that moves up and down, I'm actually going to just undo its change. So instead of moving up like that, what if it does translation on two axes at once? That might be a good test. Make it move forward as well. And make it in the same keyframe. Like that. I mean, yeah, that again looks correct. So what happens then if I do like a local rotation here as well? So we rotate on Y. Oh, I want to rotate on its local Y. So like here, there, right? So it goes out to the side. Like that. Let's give that a go. I think I may have just exported everything apart from the thing I needed. Maybe. I always zone out when I go to export things, right? That looks correct. Honestly, the bone hierarchy stuff is looking pretty solid to me, but there's still cases I've not tried, so it's worth continuing. What could be missing? Scale, obviously. I want to go back to the actual night again. Well, before I do that, actually, I am going to test scale, just so something is scaling. Wait a minute. No, there's something else I could try. Currently, all the vertices are... I don't know what the mathematical term for this would be, but they're like all... Their origin is always the bone. Like the bone is always at the center of mass of the geometry. And it's not offset. That's to say that the bind pose matrix is always going to be like without any translation, kind of. It probably would have some translation because the origin of the bone is going to be like its head. So it probably would still count as being translated already, but it's just something I want to test. Something I want to make sure works if they are offset. So if I take this one, move it away to the side, I just want to see that it's consistent. It just still does the same thing, but just offset, because it should. Yeah, that's still fine. Okay. Right, let's try some other things. So, I'm going to move this back to where it was. I guess looking at the actual animation data for the original night again, I kind of want to jump between these two every so often. Just to stay grounded on the problem I'm actually trying to solve. So, the foot that has the problem, I mean, this is the wrong animation. The foot that has the problem down here, let's just see what the differences are between their data. Like, if we just look at them, well, I mean, immediately I can see something that's different, actually. If I'm not mistaken, the x-axis points the opposite way on their bones. Like there's some spin, some roll on the bone or something on this bone. Roll negative 64, roll positive 64, roll 33, roll negative 33. So yeah, they're mirrored, but they're also mirrored on their roll. What if I undo it? What happens if I just undo all these? It might mess everything up. Just want to see. What if we don't let these bones have any roll in their bind pose? We just let them have roll in the pose. The actual pose that we'd be applying. So, first of all, does it look any different? Yeah, it looks different. Looks like he's about to ride a horse. Cool. Right, well, that's what happens if we just clear out all the roll to begin with. That's fun. Right, gonna just reload the night mesh then. Did I save that? Revert. I did save it. Wait. Okay. Well, I can just revert it in source control. Okay. So again, we want to grab idle. My gut feeling is it's something to do with the roll that's set on the bones. So, negative 33, positive 33, negative 64, positive 64, 153, negative 153. So it's like it's adding every time. That time it only added 30. This time it added a bunch, like 153. So if we look at the actual issue again, and I export all this stuff, well, selected the wrong object type. Skeleton. Mesh. And animation. Okay, so just that leg. If we just look at the original animation, what could possibly move the leg that far out of alignment? If we look straight top down, the foot is roughly in line. It's a bit behind it. Or like there. This could just do view top. Yes, the foot is like from the top, it's a little behind, but then that would be much further behind and kind of mangled. So we go into white paint again. Let's just compare these, right? So the foot isn't white painted to the leg, it's purely, well, there's a little bit just on the top there to the leg. Is that the same on the other side? No, quite different actually. Okay, that could tell us something. Is that bit around the ankle. There's a bit of weight painting that isn't there on the other side. So if I was to subtract that, just make it this top rim. Like that. I wonder how that would look. Now, that's, if anything, it's more consistent, but it's even worse in terms of the amount of warp. I say more consistent just because it kind of looks like his ankle is, it's a little less mangled, but it's just that the foot itself is adjusted in a very unusual way. So let's look at the actual data around these things. If I select individual vertices and we just look to see what's influencing them. Some things are influenced to leglower.l, but like the value is at 0 and the value on foot is 1. That seems quite common. It's weird how it's in the vertex group, but it's got a weight 0. But the other side, and it does the same thing. Very similar anyway. Okay, let's get weight painting on again. Is there any difference here? Doesn't really look like there's any difference to me, or not a significant one. I suppose I could just try to see what happens if I like fully subtract all weight painting. So there's no weight painting at all on the foot. How does that look? Looks like that. Huh. Now isn't that interesting? I just removed all the weight painting from the foot bone. But if I select the leg bone, the lower leg bone, the foot is now fully weight painted to it. And if I select the data for the foot, and we just look at what influences it, yeah, it's as though that actually just changed. Because it's now fully influenced by that. I don't think that was a change that I made myself, but maybe. Is it like it just rebalances it automatically or something? So if I subtract it completely, now that I've got the lower leg bone selected, what does that do? If I then select the foot, I see, that's how it works. While I'm weight painting, it will automatically rebalance these things. It'll compensate with the other weights. It isn't that it just doesn't contribute to that group. It's any groups that it's a part of is going to add and subtract value. So like if I select these now, foot is 1. If I went 50-50, if I select the foot and then subtract a bit, but not all of it, and then select these, it'll balance it like 50-50-ish. Okay, that's actually really interesting. I didn't know that's how weight painting worked in Blender. auto mirror. The edit tab, one of the sidebars. This might, no, that's from latest Blender, that's not from 279. No, auto mirror is a modifier. To mirror a selection along a particular global axis, press Ctrl M followed by X, Y, or Z. That's just mirroring selection. There's a mirror tool in edit mode somewhere. I'm really not sure. I know that if I move any of these, it does mirror them, and I know that there's no modifier on the object. Can't see clearly in the docs why that would be the case. Tools tab? Oh, there's like a transform mirror thing here. Oh, there's like clean up your weights as well. That's kind of cool. I didn't know any of this existed. Clean. Remove vertex group assignments which are not required. Well, I mean, that's great. That's really useful. Wish I'd known about that before. Normalize Hall. Wonder if that'll have any impact. No, okay. Good to know. Good to know it's still messed up. I mean, I don't know if that actually worked, because I mean, there's definitely a vertex group that's not required there. Foot.r. All groups. That did it. Okay, so yeah, if I re-export the mesh, okay, no, clean definitely doesn't change anything there. So just removing it from those groups didn't seem to make a difference. Leg lower L and foot L, but when I was doing my tests before, making it not a member of leg lower L at all did help. So if I was to like take all of these and just remove those completely from leg lower L. Or another way to do it is if I assign or select everything that is in leg lower L. Okay, that is weird because if I select these, oh no, these, it's just the ankle, I see. The rest of these are all just on the foot. That is correct. But then, if they're just on the foot, we still get the problem. So maybe the problem is that we need them to be just on leg lower L. So if I look at foot.l, select, this is everything for this foot. And then I wonder if I was to just remove these completely from foot and put them in leg lower L. That looks better. So that was consistent. Somehow having them weight painted onto the foot at all causes problems. There's something about the foot bone that's different to the other bones. Let's see if we can find out what. I wonder if there's something set up on it that isn't set up. Bone constraints. Ah, no, there's no bone constraints. There's no bendy bone stuff set up. Transform locks. And we lock rotation, but that's the same for everything. I don't see a difference. IK? There's no IK, surely. Nope, no IK. Deform is the thing, but the settings are different for the distance. Deform distance. Deform distance 0.045. .1 for the leg. Different for everything. I'm not really sure what these are exactly. I think this deform might just be for like auto weights. Yeah, definitely can't see any real difference between the two. Let's look at the actual animation data then. Foot L and leg lower L. The first thing that I notice is that leg lower L, it doesn't have these lines between its keyframes. It still has keyframes, I think. Let's look at it in the graph editor. If we look at both of these. Okay, so There's definitely keyframes defined on all of these. I'm really curious about what this means in Blender. We have this little kind of grey area between things for certain keyframes, but not for others. What about other things? Yeah, certain... I can delete that one keyframe. Maybe it means no change? Like if I look at this W quaternion here, right? And then we look in the graph editor. I'll look at W again. Hide everything else. We just see W. It's always the same value, and if I make a change to it, for whatever reason, just make a big change like that, and then jump back over to the dope sheet. No, it still doesn't have it. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's relevant. Probably best to assume it isn't. Just note some major difference between these two. I wonder what would happen if I reset the roll this bone. And then in weight paint, maybe I could just assign them. Yeah, so these vertices are currently a member of left lower L, so I'm going to remove them from that and just add them all into foot.l again. And then they're weight painted to that 100%. Because I changed the roll, I think that also changed the rotation, which makes sense. What was it before, like negative 153? Yeah. Just going to do an export. Not mesh. I'm trying to do animation. Do the mesh now. Yeah, so I mean, again, it's really telling actually that it seems to change the opposite ankle. That's really interesting. I have to focus on that because that's been consistent, but it doesn't follow the rules. As in, if I edit the mesh, select everything that belongs to foot.l, there's nothing on the right that belongs to foot.l that I can see at all. I can hit remove, nothing belongs to that group. But if I change this foot's assignment, so we remove it from foot.l and assign it to leg lower.l like I did before, and then export the whole thing, unless I'm mistaken, no, okay, it doesn't actually fix the other one. It just fixes this one, so it does follow the rules. But it's cool that I've pinpointed it to this specific bone. I think that's going to be the next step, is to figure out what is it that's different between this lower leg bone being the only thing that they're weighted to versus the foot itself. I think that's the key to understanding whatever this bug is. I might even get to the point of maybe I could actually selectively delete parts of the knight. That is a good idea. I should have done that before. I'm going to selectively delete parts of this to see that the issue is preserved. So for example, if I was to just delete this leg completely, delete the foot, and then just going to delete everything that isn't the vertices that end up wrong. That's the right way to think about this type of problem, I think. Like, isolate something that you know is a problem case. Okay. And then we should also be able to delete everything that isn't just the stuff in the hierarchy for that bone. So delete these. Delete that. Okay. I think I can delete that too. Yeah, because that was parented to there. So just this foot. This is all we're dealing with. So if I export the skeleton, and the foot, and the animation. Well, the animation's going to have a bunch of stuff missing now. So what I need to do is delete everything that isn't just these bones. No way to multi-select these? Can I box select them? I can. Okay. Blender surprises you sometimes. It's kind of cool. I don't think this even needs all these keyframes. We'll see. I mean, yeah, there's the leg. As far as I'm aware, that is correct. With this number of verts, I could actually start looking at outputting the number of verts that we're displaying. We could look at the values. Like, there's not that many verts now. It wouldn't be too spammy to see that info. So like, we're dealing with 27 verts, and I could easily delete stuff. I mean, what we really care about is the foot. So if I was to delete these, now it's only 18. I can get these 18 verts. I mean, really? We only care about one. We just care about the data of one vertex, but one might be a bit too reductive from a visualization point of view. Like if there's just one vertex, I'm not going to be able to visualize what the problem is. So let's not go as far as that, but we could probably take it like maybe, I don't know, maybe not half, but take a couple faces off of this. That shape is still, like, if it rotates or it scales, you can still tell visually, more or less, that it's wrong. So yeah, if I weight paint this again, and I want to fully weight paint it to that. So the way we're going to do it actually is leg lower.l, move, foot.l, assign. There we go. It's just that foot. Well, actually, no. No, I've changed my mind. I want more of the foot because that's what was showing as that stretching. Yeah, let's keep some of it at least. Let's just keep this much. That's fine. We can work on the other bits later. So yeah. So I want to select everything from here and yeah, I mean we just want the foot. This is all the foot.l stuff. Select everything from foot.l, and then I want to remove all of that stuff from leg lower.l. And if we look at everything that's in leg lower.l, I mean it is genuinely just that. We probably also want these to be in there. And, you know, normalized would be nice too. Okay, let's try this setup. And then the animation. Yeah, you can see it's so broken. You can see right away that it's way wrong. But that's great because it's just such a simple case for us to test. It looks like there's a little bit of movement, like translation. It almost looks like the actual bone itself is in the wrong position for the foot, and I don't know why that would be. You can see that it is connected, but it's very odd. Okay, let's look at this animation data then. Now we've isolated it to a very specific part of the mesh. What have I not looked at? That's the question. Scale. We've not looked at scale. Let's look at scale. Now, if we make it so I can only see scale, everything is at scale 1 for leg lower.l. Is everything at scale 1 for all the bones? We just expand all of these and we look at all the scale values. Am I going to see one for everything? Yep, scale's always 1 for all of these values. You can scale everything up and down. Okay, but this is the animation data. What about the actual bone itself? Is there a way for me to determine what the scale is? Well, I mean, I guess it'll get bound, so the scale's always going to be 1. I think the scale's always going to be 1. Because if you were to scale this bone up in edit mode, all it's going to do is increase the length of the tail. If I scale from active element especially. The radius parent goes up. The envelope goes up. But mainly, the tail position goes up. So there's no like inverse transform scale matrix stuff that is separate to just the head and the tail from what I remember. So the way I export my skeleton here is we just take the local matrix of the bone, we have the parent matrix, and we invert the parent matrix, and then we do parent matrix times bone matrix. That's it. So this is the joint space transform for the bind pose. That's what pose the skeleton's just in. Like it's basically just the transforms of all the bones. And we store the scale, but we say X, Z, Y because Blender's Z and Y are the wrong way around compared to our engine. X, Y, Z. We do a similar thing for rotations, X, Z, Y. We invert the angle for the same reason. The handedness of the coordinate system changes, so the angles invert. And then X, Z, Y for translations as well. So that's it. Like we don't actually look at the head and the tail or anything directly, we just use these matrices. So scale will play a factor in terms of our data, but the whole purpose of that is so that we don't need to handle like heads and tails manually. Okay, so I guess what I could try next is if I just look at the data for what's influencing those vertices in Blender and just step through it, the same way as I am here. Because I think, now, oh, that would be an interesting test. What if I clear all of the transforms, clear all the vertex data, just delete the whole lot, reset it all, insert keyframes so there's still an animation there, but there's no change in any of the data. It is default. Pure clean animation. Then I'm going to re-export the animation data. And as usual, for good measure, mesh. And the skeleton. Even then it's broken. Even just applying the bind pose transform is broken. We're getting somewhere. I can even see that if I was to delete these, and just export this mesh, then run it again. You can see it right away. Still got that problem. Really interesting. I can see that edit mode versus... Huh. I don't think this is the problem, but I can see that there's a difference between edit mode and object mode, and usually that only happens if there is actually a pose defined. But I wanted this to be cleared to the bind pose, so if I go into pose mode and clear, I was only clearing rotation. So if I let clear rotation and translation and scale, is there still a problem? Just the animation export. There is still a problem. Okay. So I want to export it. I want to export the skeleton as well. I'm just being extra careful that if there's any data that's changed that I didn't think had changed, I want it all to be exported so we can see it. Still an issue? So if we think about what is happening here logically, it's only things that have an influence, or have, put this another way, if any vertices have weights that reference this bone, there's no animation data being defined, we're using the default animation data. It still has this problem. It still ends up way off to the side. And it ends up way off to the side, even if like I was to, I don't know, add like a cylinder or a sphere maybe? Yeah, I'll do a sphere. I added 2 spheres. Ugh, because they're whatever. I need to figure out how that works. But anyway, I was going to add like a reference point object in the middle, but that's going to get too complicated. So we just know that having multiple influences, or in this case, even just everything being weighted directly to the foot bone here, is it's non-functional. Does it make a difference if I connect all the bones? So everything is connected. Same issue. Nothing to do with them being connected or not connected. Okay, what if I change the role? We'll just do those 2. That changed the issue. Definitely changed the issue. Doesn't change it in Blender. Okay, so what if we just change role across the whole skeleton? There's no roll at all. Even with none of it, it's still not in the right place. Whether it's the foot that's wrong or the ankle that's wrong at this point is actually really hard to tell, but the data is different from how it is in Blender. That's the main thing. Okay. There is some inverse parent transform defined on the rotation, I think. No, the rotation's 0 and then the axis is X, so there's no inverse parent transform on that data. Across all these groups, there's leg lower and there's foot. Most of these are foot. That's where the problem is. What is it about this that's wrong? We've deleted all the roll off of all of these. We're painting them to a single weight. What have I not thought of? Foot.l, leg lower.l. What if I was to weight paint all of it to the root? What does it look like then? Slightly odd. Not in that vertex group. Like if I select it, it's not in the vertex group for the root. Huh. I don't know what happened there. I'm going to try subtracting this to get rid of everything. So it's not on the leg bone, it's not on the foot bone, there's nothing else going on. You look at just the vertices. I mean, leg lower.l, because when I change the foot, it's going to change it back to being on this leg, because that's where it belongs currently. If I just go full addition, we just add it to the root bone, which I believe is the one that's just called bone. Yep. There we go. And the other two has 0 influence. So if we were to do it clean, just bone. Okay. So that means we export the mesh. And we run the game again. It looks correct. Okay. I think I want to zoom in on it a bit, now that we're dealing with much more fine-grained data. Let's see how this looks. Okay, so we just have a correct looking foot as far as I can tell. Doesn't have that strange issue. And then if I was to... What if I was to paint everything including the ankle just onto this bone? Alright. So now if I look at these verts, entirely on the foot. Everything including the little ankle bit. And if I just clean them up, it's just the foot, that. So we export the mesh. It looks fine. So it's just when the ankle is, when it shares the weight between those two bones, that's when the issue comes in. Like if I was to go to the ankle and say, okay, now you're 50% weight painted onto the foot, we could do that. Let's try it. So if I weight paint, select that, and then change to add, well we're on add now, and I just want to change to 50%, so like, is that going to do it? Yeah, it's 50-50, and then for everything else, just the foot. Okay, so export the mesh. Test it. Yeah, it's messed up. Okay, so possibilities are the actual skeletal system is wrong. So what I want to try now is, the possibilities are the actual the system for defining the skeleton and its hierarchy of transforms is wrong in some way, some subtle way that we didn't catch with the last test. The other possibility is that the weight painting is broken somehow. So to determine which one of those two it is, I'm actually going to rebuild a test we had before. What I'm going to do is add a cube. Oh, this is going to create two cubes now, isn't it? Because it's mirrored. It's a bit annoying, because I don't know why it's doing that. I'm going to have a little look online again. I'm not sure what drives this mirroring feature. Symmetry. Is it that? Mesh options, X mirror. Right, so there's a mesh options panel here. Is there a thing called X mirror? I can't see it. Options, X mirror, options, X mirror. That's it. Turn that off. It shouldn't make a difference, but I'm gonna re-export the mesh now that X mirror is turned off. It really shouldn't make a difference. I don't expect it to, but no, good. All right, still got the problem, so we can still dig into what's causing it. Cool. I'm glad I sorted out that X mirror thing. That was getting in the way. Okay, so cube. Not that small. Like that small. So what I'm going to do here is actually just build up a series of meshes that are the same size as the bones themselves. This is a little odd. The pivot point here isn't where I would expect it to be. Median point, there we go. So yeah, what I'm going to do here is just set this up, this cube, so that we basically could build out like a skeleton where it's just boxes for each of the bones, and we just render those boxes in game. So if I do a side view, I'm actually going to hide this for now. Okay. The boxes shouldn't be that big, maybe just like that big. There we go. That's one. Okay, and then now we just extend this. Ah, I thought if I set that to local. Oh, normal? Normal, there we go. Just for fun, I'm going to make this one a bit smaller, just because this is a sharper turn. And then we'll just do something kind of similar here. Okay, so I can see that some of these will need aligned on a different axis, but we'll just fire through them just now. It's actually close enough. That's cool. Yeah, so then we'll just do the same again, and again, I don't want to extrude this, I do just want to select the whole thing, duplicate it, and just get it broadly into the position that we need it in. Okay. Cool, and then we're just going to grab oh, I see, so the island select, L, only works if you select near a vertex. That makes sense. So this obviously isn't perfect, but it's a reasonable sense of the shape of things. I think I'll go in and maybe color these, just so they're obviously different. I could definitely like just make this a little bit more obvious what it's doing. There we go. And then kind of feel like this should be just centered on that join. It's kind of like there. This doesn't have to be perfect, it's just enough to illustrate the concept, to see that the transformations are generally working the way that you would expect. Basically a way to render the bones if the weight paints are always exactly on one bone each. So next up is we need to color these, and actually I could vertex paint them, but I think the cleanest way to color them is just going to be to go in with the texture, like the night texture, and then just like let's see, so if I just smart unwrap these, I'm not going to bother doing anything fancy, but I'm just going to do like, I want to figure out which one's which. So actually, yeah, change my mind. I'll do one at a time, unwrap it, give you one color, and then you as well, give you another color. So let's see what other colors we got. We got red. Only really got two colors. This might not work. We'll see. And then just this one. So try and make you like a much lighter color. As long as they alternate, it might actually be fine. Or actually, you go really dark. Well, it's on a black background, so that might not be a good idea. If I make it really small, I could put it like up here. There we go, and we get a kind of shiny color. And then this one probably doesn't matter that much, but I'll give it like a slightly darker color like that. Okay, so now we can see vertices transformed to each bone. So the next step is to actually weight paint these. So we're just gonna fully add, oh no, this bit's gonna be a little tricky, but let's just make my radius much smaller. There we go. Cool, that's one. Now, it looks like one of the vertices down here is influenced by this, and it shouldn't be, so we'll get rid of that. We do just want the vertices for this actual object. There we go. And up top, similar thing. There we go. Then this one. Let's do these corners as well. And then just subtract out. Oh, I did subtract like that. Later, I'm not sure why that is. Maybe because it's the only one it was bound to. Yeah, we'll see what happens if I change to additive for this one. Okay, so then that's fully painted. And I wanted to check if that takes away. Yeah, that took away all the influence for that bone. That's fine. For each one, you can just paint it full way for the bone that we care about. And it should auto clean up the other stuff. There we go. Okay. So now all we have to do is export this mesh. Export the skeleton. The animation hasn't changed, so that's fine. All right, let's see what happens. Okay. Right away, there's a few issues here. First thing I notice is that the red object is not properly weight painted, or at least its weights aren't getting applied correctly, because it should end exactly on that joint, and it doesn't in the game. The second thing I notice is that the foot is it's offset, where neither the ankle nor the foot itself is correct. So this is a great test, actually. This will really help narrow down the problem. If I can get the engine to render this the same way as Blender does, I think that'll really help us pin down this issue. Okay, I think I'm going to leave the stream there for today, and come back to this issue later. Hopefully, if I can get this fixed, then it'll really open up what we can do with our animation system. It'll mean that we can get some work on the cutscene system started. All of the nice enemy animations that Ali's made for us will look correct, and we won't have all of these unusual problems. So yeah, thanks for anybody who's here, and I'll see you later.